So I am super excited to introduce our second speaker of the night. He looks a little bit nervous over there. So we have Vadim, who's going to be joining us, and he has some fun facts too. So Vadim once ended up controlling a plane that flew above downtown Toronto, and you're going to have to ask him about that one. He adopted a black cat during the pandemic, and he named him Sherlock. And over the last 8 years, he's been the CTO of 4 different startups, but he never wrote a line of code before 2017. I don't know how that works. Vadim, come on up here and share your fuck-ups.
Thank you. Now, this is fantastic. Hi, everyone. My name is Vadim. I'm one of the 2 co-founders at Paperstack. And when Marcia asked me to prepare a presentation, schedule a few calls, and kind of tell her about what I'm going to say, I didn't. And I, on the way here, came up with a few things that I wanted to say to all of you. And the reason for that is I really didn't know the kind of crowd or the energy in the room that's going to happen, and I wanted to add value. So, get your questions ready. I'll be, as vulnerable and as transparent as I can. But there's something to that title, the overnight success, and really, I just want to share something with you is that, and it's very honest, but the last 6 months of my life were the best 6 months of my life. We just closed a $9.5 million round of financing, and we've been growing, I think, according to our Stripe dashboard, by 1,600% in the past 6 months. But what I want to talk about is that, like the 10 years leading up to that, and everything that went wrong, and essentially the story leading up to that. So, I was born in a country called Ukraine. Any Ukrainians in the room? There you go. And when I came to Canada in 2013, I was very shy, and I wasn't comfortable with my accent. I didn't know what was going on. It was hard for me to make friends, and sometimes people, would say, I didn't know why people would say Toronto instead of Toronto, and things like that. It was just completely new environment for me, and I had to adapt to being a 17-year-old. But throughout the years, I realized that I can be anyone I want to be. This is really a Canadian dream, a country of opportunities, and somebody who came from a post-USSR country, we appreciate that, right? And so, fresh out of college, I graduated. I didn't go to a target school. I went to a college in Canada. I didn't graduate with a degree. I spent 3 years in college, and off I went to having a corporate career. But I worked the first few years of my life in wealth management, and that really put me in a room with very powerful, very smart, very rich people. And I realized that I can be anyone I want. I was on the portfolio construction side. We were building portfolios for family offices and high net worth individuals, and it was just awesome. But the moment I got my PR is the moment I realized I don't want to do that anymore. I wasn't interested in making wealthy people wealthier. I really wanted to do something else. I wanted to start my business. It was really exciting. Everybody was starting businesses at that time. They were getting these crazy valuations. I thought, I'm going to get 10 million on the idea. Why not? And so I quit. I quit my job in wealth management. And this picture was taken in late 2017, posted on Instagram in January of 2018. This is one of my best friends from college, Sajad, and me holding the phone, taking a picture of him, and that's the logo of our very first startup that we designed the night before. We got into one of these Ryerson zones, and we were off to the races. It was really exciting. We were going to disrupt real estate. We were going to put every unoccupied office space on the internet and create an Airbnb for commercial real estate. That never happened. We didn't know anything about real estate. Neither me nor my co-founder have a real estate background. And when we tried to call people from real estate, they were like, who are these 2 kids thinking they know something about real estate? Get out of here. So we worked on a few startups for a few years. We actually started 4 companies together. We did a bit in the real estate space. We started a legal tech company. We've tried it all. We really had a pretty cool run. for a few years. But we never made money. For the first few startups that I've started, the overall cumulative revenue of all those companies was $0. And I spent 4 years convincing myself that I have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. We were pitching investors, we were creating pitch decks, we were pivoting and spending way too much time coding. That's how I became a full stack developer. I just had a lot of time and a lot of Red Bull. And I was very excited about what we were building. But to be very honest with you, there was no commercial application for companies that Sajad and I were building. He's doing really well right now. So it worked out for both of us. But like I said, the first few years of my life, I just didn't have any luck. I was following all these founders raising millions of dollars, but at the same time, I didn't know if I have what it takes to build a successful business. Everybody else around me, they were raising millions of dollars in financing, and I didn't do that. We pitched to investors time and time again. We pitched to every single Toronto-based and then later Canada-based, and there's only 34 of them, but we pitched to every single investor and VC in Canada, and they turned us down because we didn't fit the mold. We didn't have the traction, rightfully so. I didn't go to Harvard. My co-founder didn't invent COVID vaccine, so they weren't interested in funding us at a seed stage. And combining that with personal setbacks and really challenging few years of my life, a very long relationship that didn't work out, and we've been together for about 4 or 5 years, and that didn't go anywhere. So you can probably imagine what 2020, a year of 2020 was like for me personally. And then at the beginning of 2020, I go to Spain, and they greet me with tanks and the army because the entire country is shutting down and everybody has to go back to Canada. It's called COVID. And so that happened to me. And so I come back, and one thing that I'm going to mention in a few minutes, but something really turned around for me. But when I came back, I was just heartbroken. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't sure if I want to go back to wealth management or if there was even an opportunity for me to go back to that corporate career on Bay Street. I wasn't sure if I want to start another company. I've been part of a few companies where I wasn't a founder, and I pretty much didn't agree with founders that were building that startup. So it's really hard for me to figure out and reconcile what I actually want to do, in the near future. And so that's when I met Estelle. So this is actually an event. Estelle is my co-founder. She's right there. And this is where I met her. So she hosted an amazing event at DMZ where founders were supposed to come and talk very similar to Fuckup Nights, but supposed to come and talk about things that weren't working, things that they were learning. And I had a lot to say. I was learning a lot, doing all the wrong things. So I was there and I was one of the speakers. And we kind of stayed in touch. And I've known Estelle since Seneca days, but we've stayed in touch. And decided to start a company together. And yes, I was again a co-founder on a company that I just started, and I wasn't sure if this is going to work out any differently. But I think we just had a very clear division of responsibilities. All of a sudden, we had the right skill set. She's really good at marketing and sales and fundraising, and I knew a lot about things not to do in the product and technology, and generally startup things in general. So we ended up launching this company in the middle of the pandemic, and at that time, right now we're doing e-commerce lending, but at that time we were really focusing on bookkeeping automation for e-commerce. We realized that accounting and finance is not something that a lot of DTC brands are superly excited about, so we wanted to create a one-click solution for bookkeeping automation. We continue to iterate. We got a few clients, so the revenue wasn't zero anymore. I personally surpassed my all-time long milestone, and finally cracked the code on how to make a sale, thanks to my co-founder. And we were off to the races. And then we started fundraising. And again, we spoke to every single VC in Canada, all 34 of them, and they all turned us down. Because again, we were too early. We didn't have a track record. We were trying to, figure out how to make billions of dollars on bookkeeping. And one of them actually asked us a question. They said, well, how many clients, and we were charging like $99 a month. They asked, how many clients do you need to have to make, $100 million a year or $1 million a year? And I did the math and I'm like, wow, for $99 a month, we're not going anywhere. So we had to pivot again. And we applied to accelerators in Canada. We applied to all of the accelerators, and none of them accepted us. So the failure was, again, pretty fresh in my mind. I was concerned that this is not going to work. We didn't have a lot of investments either, and both of us left our jobs to do this. So I don't have an income, Estelle doesn't have an income. We didn't raise a ton of investments outside of a few angel checks, and those people are honestly crazy to put money at us. But, and we managed to stretch every dollar as far as we could. Our burn rate was just what it costs us to rent and eat, and that's it. We didn't have a team. I did all the technical work, and Estelle did all the fun stuff. And this is where we took a trip to Edmonton, and I want to talk about the all-time low moment in my life. We take a trip to Edmonton. We're on the business. We're raising money. There was an event in Banff that got canceled when we got there. So we stayed in the Airbnb, and I remember this moment. It was really crazy. Like we were, trying to figure out if maybe U.S.-based investors would be more interested. Like, if we could find the right people to support our business. We're working on the pitch decks and sending out, cold proposals because we didn't have a strong network to kind of tap into those, partners that VC firms firsthand in the U.S. And I remember this Airbnb it was one of the hottest summers in Canada. It was a year ago, right? It was one of the hottest summers in Canada. We're stuck in Edmonton. And we're making these sales calls. And I didn't find this picture. I wanted to find, but I want you to imagine, right? Just close your eyes and imagine. So it's one of those rental properties where a landlord buys a property, puts it on Airbnb. That's how they live. One thing that this particular person decided to do is not to have AC in his entire home. So we get in there, everything is amazing. And I'm one of those people that I can't sleep at nights if it's too hot in the room. So we get there. It's really nice place. It's all it's just a great place. And then we realize there is no air conditioner. And so the person that owned the property, he was completely disinterested to, help us in any way. Like I think at some point I texted him and I said, look, one of us has a heat stroke. Can you please turn on? Because I knew there is an air conditioner. Like there's a thermostat. Like he clearly just didn't want to spend extra money on the AC. And I texted him that, and he replies, okay, and nothing happens. He ends up bringing us a fan, he ended up bringing us a fan that just keeps spinning hot air around the room, and that's how bad it was. And I want you to imagine this. I get outside, so I take a chair, I put it outside, so I can still catch Wi-Fi from the home, and I sit outside at 7 p.m. I just want you to close your eyes and imagine this, okay? I sit outside in my underwear because it's so hot, both inside and outside. I'm sitting outside in my underwear with the laptop on my lap, trying to raise money for a business that's not going anywhere. I was crying on the inside, and I was sweating on the outside. But it was really, really bad. And so we stayed there for a few more weeks. And we applied to a few other accelerators. We applied to Techstars and 500 Startups and YC. YC rejected us. But we had a flight back to Toronto scheduled for a few weeks out. So we decided to stay there and maybe explore local nature for a little bit because nobody was taking calls. Or they were taking calls, they were just not investing. So we stay there and then we fly back. And then at the airport, a managing director of Techstars ends up emailing us. So we're in the cab, kind of going to the airport, and she says, can we talk in the next 2 hours? And a friend of mine got rejected over the phone applying to Techstars a few weeks before. So he says, that's how they usually do. They just call you and they tell you exactly what's wrong with your business, and then they ask you to maybe apply again in a year, right? They want to see more traction. So right there, like we already expect that this is not going anywhere. We're already rejected by everyone, and now this accelerator is going to reject us, and then we're going to go back to Toronto and we'll have to figure something out. And so we're at the airport. And usually it's like they call you and they say, it's been a really competitive application, and we had a lot of very talented companies apply, and after a long consideration, and that's when they tell you everything that's wrong with your business. So we were in the airport, we already checked in, so we're just waiting for our flight. We check in by the Starbucks at the airport, and I'm trying to call her on Zoom because I have a Canadian phone number, I can't call a US number, I have a very cheap plan. And so I'm trying scheduling a call on Zoom so we can talk. And she phones in and she says, yeah, Vadim and Estelle, we had a very competitive applicant pool this year. And I just wanted you to know that it was a very tough decision to select the 12 companies that are getting into the batch. And right away, you looked at each other, we were like, okay, that's it. And then she says, and we want to offer you a spot. And I was going to yell, like a happy yell, right? Like, yoo-hoo, in the middle of the airport. I think I did. I'm pretty sure I did. I was so excited. We ended up accepting an offer, waiting for our plane, so we just verbally committed right there and then. And then we bought the most expensive Starbucks drink we could buy. We made it. So, this is Techstars. This is me, and this is my co-founder, Estelle, and this is a whole room of really amazing founders. Some of them had Facebook as customer in the pre-seed stage. Others worked at a Federal Reserve, and they're building a fintech startup. And there were two of us. We didn't go to a target school. We were still figuring out what we wanted to do. But we made it, and we were in the room. It was amazing. We had an amazing experience at Techstars. We got access to investors, advisors in the US. We were a train ride from New York and a train ride from Washington, D.C., and we just loved every moment of it. And that acceptance into Techstars, I personally believe, turned our company around. We went from a startup with an idea and two founders, struggling to put something together, to a company that ended up, being on a stage at the demo day in front of many thousands of people, pitching for funding, and a few months later we closed around the funding that I was referring to at the beginning of this conversation, which got published on BetaKit, $9 million. And we were off to the races. We went, to the moon. This is one of the biggest things I've ever done in my life. This is really the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. But I just wanted to, to share something with you, kind of talking about the takeaways and everything that went wrong, things like that. So, building a startup is like sports, right? It's like playing a game. And whether you're playing soccer, and it's 90 minutes, 2 halves. You're playing hockey, it's 2 hours, 3/3. It's like losing a game, and then you're going into the third period, and you make it even, and then you win in the overtime. That's the kind of feeling that I had after spending 8 years and failing 4 startups without making a single dollar in revenue, clearly realizing my strategy wasn't working, recouping, whatever in the locker room, then English is my third language, then coming back out, because I'm from Ukraine, coming back out and mailing it in, like completely changing the trajectory of your own business. So, I just want to maybe share a few things that I think, other founders should, could probably put to work. I think that, not giving up right away, not relying on outside funding, and really be prepared to put in years and years of work before the business shows results. I think that's the mindset that you should be going into entrepreneurship, right? Like, starting a business is not about raising money. We still haven't raised even a fraction of funding that our closest competitors like Clearco and Wayflyer and others have. They raise hundreds of millions of dollars. They're not doing well right now. We've raised a fraction of that, and we're in the market currently providing financing to e-commerce merchants from Shopify, Amazon, etc. But I think it takes years for anyone to really even understand what they want to do. Sometimes the idea is not the right one. Sometimes you're not working with the right person on that idea. Sometimes the timing isn't right. And it could be anywhere from half a year to 6-7 years, like it was in my case. But if you got that grit, if you got what it takes to start a business and persevere and succeed, I think believing in yourself and pursuing that is worth an overtime win. Thank you.
Vadim, that was a great story. It's amazing to see that you've had so many fuck-ups over the last 10 years, and you just kept persevering and going at it, and it's amazing where you are right now. I'll also forgive you for ignoring some of my calls to go over the talk. I know you were personally victimized by the SVB meltdown, as a lot of us were here in the room, so a lot to deal with in the week and the days leading up to this.